I'll talk a little bit about the setup, but most of all I'm going to talk about what I think is the most important part. I've been teaching fly casting for nearly 20 years. And I figured out that the most important thing in casting is your lift and your pickup. And there's different ways of doing it. But where I come from, we fish trout with a single-handed rod. We don't fish trout with a two-handed rod. We fish salmon, sea trout, sea run brown trout with two-handed rods. And it's not because our trout is not big enough, because we catch them up to 20, 25 pounds, brown trout. So, but we catch them on streamers and stuff. But I'll just take you through the whole idea of the Scandi setup more than anything. Those of you that know anything about Scandinavia, or especially Denmark, will know that the tax pressure is about 70%. So we don't like to work too hard. So that's why this technique was invented, because you don't have to do anything. Right? There. Don't move at all. That's all it is. But how do you get there? I think, as I said, most important part of this is how to lift your line off the water before you actually make your sweep. Get the head out here. It's a fairly short head. I'm a metric guy, sorry. So it's about 8-meter head or something. Right, so the first thing is that you just lift, then you fix your wrist, your sweep, anchor, and cast. And you can tell the difference. I'm going to make a little fun of the Scandi boys, which I normally do. There. Right? If you don't break your rod, the fish will hear you. Right, here's the, it's a much more silent approach. Doesn't say anything. And I'm a strong believer that if the fish don't know you're there, they're more willing to take. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, and how to get to that is simply your leader. That's your anchor point. You don't anchor fly line. So I'm here on a 9'5" weight here. I'm on a 13 plus what, another 2, so about 15-foot tapered leader. And that's my anchor. And we've heard a lot about not dipping your rod tip in your sweep. So you lift, you sweep with a straight rod tip, anchor the leader. As soon as I dip my rod tip, there I anchor fly line. And that's when the fish knows we're here. And I need more power to get it off the water again. So lift, straight path with the rod, anchor the leader and cast. That's a very, very simple, we call it underhand casting because spey casting is, you know, it's a river in Scotland, right? River Spey. Okay, so we have a different word for it. Traditional spey casting would have been done with long bamboo rods and long bellied lines where you had to lift, and in order to place your anchor you would have to dip your rod tip to anchor line to create an anchor point. Okay, so that's where the spey casting comes from. A traditional spey cast would be like that: lift, dip, anchor line and cast. Takes much more power. Anyway, so this is just a regular, what we would call underhand. I know that everybody thinks underhand casting is done with a two-handed rod. I'll get back to it in a minute when I get a two-handed rod in my hand. But it can be done with a single-handed as well. Now I caught some trees here. There. Okay. So just regular swinging. Now I'm just made a regular cast that goes straight down where it come from. And that's what we just fished. So we have to change our angle. How do we do that? I'm just going to walk down here so you can actually see my feet. Just point your toes in your new casting direction. Right? I'm just going to straighten out the line again. Here. There. So you twist your upper body down towards your line. You lift just like you did before. You twist. When that rod passes your nose tip, you sweep, anchor, and cast. Then you made an angle change. It's that simple. Do it again. Lift. Twist, rod passes my nose tip, my hand comes out and I cast. Got caught up in the mic here. There. Okay. That's the simple way of doing it. Then, as you probably know, when you anchor, if you're dry fly fishing, we're trout fishing now, right? So when you dry fly fish and you anchor your dry fly in your anchor point and you cast forward, that little fly is sliding backwards. And what happens when your fly drags in the water? When you cast forward, it sinks. Right? Because it's soaked water. There. So how do you get around that? Or do you only overhead cast with your dry fly? No? You don't fish dry flies?
Oh yeah, I do.
But you only overhead cast them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Watch this then. Okay. So instead of drowning your dry fly with your anchor there, it anchors, that leader anchors straight, and you cast forward, and it drags the dry fly back, and it drowns it. So if you just you've all seen these little tricks here. That was like the Perry poke, the beginning of whatever snap sea or all these fancy casts. Okay. So you just do it out here instead. There. Just flick there and cast. I'll speed it up a little bit. So here, up, down, anchor the back end of the leader and cast. So your fly never touches the water. So now you can actually spey cast with a dry fly without the fly drowning. If you speed it up a little bit, you can snap the water of it as well. There, snap, cast. So it's two things in one cast. It's like a Kinder egg. You have them over here. You know those chocolate deals, and you take them apart and there's toys inside. Okay, so you can actually snap, dry the fly, and make if you fish a downstream dry fly, and you got it all in one. And it all comes down to one thing. All comes down to not moving the rod too far forward. Okay, if you come too far forward with your rod, you don't have time to do anything. So a high stop there gives you time to change direction or make your little wiggle. Okay. Now I was playing around with this up on the parking lot a minute ago. I'm just going to back up a little bit here, because when I dry fly fish, we have much smaller streams than this. This is like a huge big river. I would pick my 15-footer and go swinging, right? Back home in Europe, our rivers are smaller, and they tend to bend. So, like running like this. You probably have them over here as well, spring creeks, you call them, or whatever. So instead of walking down to the corner and take a look around and see if there's any fish, you cast around it. No? No, you choose the one to go down and take a look. Oh, there was one. Right, now it's gone. Okay. So it can also be used if you got a rock or something in the middle. So you can actually cast around it. See him get rid of this. There you go. Okay. And it's all done from a water-based cast, a spey or an underhand or whatever you want to do. So if your stop is high enough, you can stop up here. You have time to change direction of the fly line. So we can make a left turn. There. So it goes around the corner. So you don't have to walk down and take a look, see if there was a fish. You can also go the other way. You can go to the right if the river runs the other way. Oh, there's a tree. So we just go that way. Okay, that's what we call trout fishing. It's not done with sink tips and streamers. Okay, so that's just a little bit about the single-handed stuff, what we do back home. But now we're talking spey fishing. So I got a couple of two-handed rods with me. Just chuck that one. That's also a slightly different technique. Let me get this one. But it's the same idea. It's the long leader that anchors. Somebody is. Yeah. It's the same idea with the leader. It's the anchor point. It's not your fly line. That's the line out there. Yeah. Okay, so now I have about a 17-foot leader on. And it's the same thing. You lift, but instead of using your top hand like you did with your single-handed, you just sweep your lower hand out in a half circle. There, anchor, and cast. That's all it is. This is so easy you won't believe it. The problem comes from, I've been teaching this, and like I said, for 20 years. And when people that grab a two-handed rod, they're like, it's a big stick, need power. I need to put my thumb here and I need to put my thumb here. It's like I'm chopping wood with an axe. And that's the problem. This is so super easy. See if I can get around that little wood there. This is so easy. Just lift, half circle with your lower hand, wait for it to anchor and cast. So you can all do that now. Okay? So if you see this, now I'm gonna cast this as a single-handed rod. Watch the butt section. Lift. See? It's exactly the same movement with this arm. Right? But the power application comes from my lower hand, just like it did with my single-handed casting. It came from my double hole. Right? And the problem with casting and casting fly rods, you go from steelhead season. I fish a lot over on the clear water for steelies and fish for salmon up in Iceland part of the year. And you fish a 200 rod for months, and then suddenly it goes into trout season, and your buddy goes, what happened? Now I don't have anything to grab down here, or vice versa. So if you do exactly the same body movement, casting single or casting double, the body will not react to it. It's like, oh, it's totally natural. I can do this all day. Doesn't matter if I grab my lower hand here. It's the same thing. Muscle memory. It's the problem, right? People that come from single hand fishing, you know, like, you have cormorants over here. Okay. It's what we call the cormorant cast. Right, they stand like this. And you try and do that with a double-handed rod and it doesn't work. So do the same thing all the time. Just super easy. This hand doesn't do anything. It's just a rotation point. That's why I only hold it with 2 fingers. So push your elbow back so it's 90 degrees. Left hand goes in a half circle. Cast. No pushing. As soon as I push, I open my loop. Push. And again, there's been a whole lot of talking about mending, right? You let the line land and then you mend. So all the fish that was under your line knows you're here. It's really good if there's somebody behind you don't like. But if your best buddy is fishing behind you, you should learn how to do this. There, cast, mend before it lands. And it all comes down from a high stop. If you push your top hand forward, your stop is going to be much lower, and you don't have time to do anything. Right? So in my world, there's no difference casting a single-handed rod or a double-handed rod. It's the same thing. It's just a bit longer. Power application comes from my lower hand, not from my top hand. You don't have to look like a cormorant when you're done. So a little bit about the anchor, like I promised. A lot of you probably heard that you need to place your anchor above you when you change your angle, right? Make it an angle change in your forward cast. I'll just go you through the angle change with the spey rod. It's the same thing. Feet points in your new casting direction. You lift, you twist, rod passes your nose tip, out comes your left hand, anchor and cast. Did you see that? That was cool. That was David Copperfield right there. If I come back next year, I'll bring an elephant. Hang on, my waders are falling now. There. Okay, so most people say that your anchor point needs to be above you when you're casting. Did you notice that cast right there? The anchor was sitting square right in front of me, and I casted across it. So most people, they'll say, there, up above. Some people call it what is it called? Something with an L. Bloody L, right? I love the bloody L. People that needs to cast with their anchor point above them, they'll have to go and change the length of their shooting head all the time. It's not my wader, sorry. They're falling down. There. They'll have to change the shooting head all the time, because if I'm super tight in on the trees and I have to put my D-loop all the way up there you see what happens. It's gonna fall, it's gonna go into the trees here. So it's going to take much more space. But if I can anchor the leader in front of me, out there, I can still cast and get caught in the trees. Line management issues, we call it. And it doesn't take us nearly as much space. So just your anchor placement makes the difference. I'll do it again. We'll walk out a little bit. I hope these waders are not leaking, because now the microphone deal is way down here somewhere. Okay, so I'll see if I can do it in slow motion. And I see, if you watch that little red piece of wool, when it anchors, you can see it slides backwards. That was what I was talking about. My leader slides. Okay, so I can do this. Anchor square in front of me and cast it over it, because my leader just slides away from the new casting direction. Perfect. But if I anchor fly line doing this, everything is falling down.
Oh, you better pick
It's
it
my
up.
belt that came off. Sorry. Hang on a minute. If I anchor fly line, if I anchor my fly line in my anchor, just hang on a minute. There we go. I can't do it because then it's stuck. Okay, so if I try to do this, there, and my line anchors, see what happens. Tailing loop right away. Or if I use a pulley tip, that'll do the same thing, because it anchors so hard it's not going to slide anywhere. But if I just anchor my leader, there, I can still do it, because it just slides away from the new casting direction. You get that?
So the key is just to anchor your leader, keep your line off the water.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Right.
And how to anchor your leader? Well, it's just lift, sweep with your left hand, and cast. Don't dip your tip hand there, because then you can't do it. Okay? So where I live and where we fish, I'll just tell you, I traveled all the way over here and skipped opening day of salmon season in Denmark just to come and see you. I saw pictures of the first 40-pounder already.
That's a bummer.
That's a bummer. Okay, but where we fish, we don't have the luxury. We can't wade into a river. We're up on the banks. Rivers are super deep, buck shaped. And we have grass and trees and stuff growing into the river. So we don't have the luxury of being able to do this, because then we're going to catch the trees or a cow or something in the back cast. Okay, so I'll just give you a few tricks here that's super helpful. You all heard about the circle C and the, not the circle C, the snake roll and the reverse snake roll and stuff, right? No?
Yeah.
Yeah? What are you using for?
The wind's blowing uphill.
Yeah, I tried that with wind. I hooked myself anyway.
Getting phone numbers.
Exactly. Now I use the reverse snake roll. I don't call it that because it's just a circle with your rod tip, right? It's a clockwise circle. Well, what do you use it for? It depends on where you speed it up. If I go slow, quick over the top, see, I can throw my anchor point into the river and still cast. So I can put that anchor further away. That's very, very super handy where I come from, where you can't get in, can't step into the river. You're walking up on a grass bank full of grass and bushes and all kinds of stuff. So instead of swinging your D-loop in like you normally would do, just build a circle there, throw that D-loop into the river, let the line anchor and cast. It's very, super easy. What do we use the snake roll for? Everybody says it's because if you have a downstream wind and you can anchor the line harder and stuff like that. Yeah, right. I tried that. Still have a scar. I use it. Like, we had a couple of too many beers last night. Right? Oh, what caught. So this simple cast here, angle change, lift, twist, there, anchor, and cast out there. It's a super tricky cast because the timing has to be right, and you need to think. So if you're tired or you fish too much or you're hungover or whatever you are, if you build a circle, the line travels in a circle, and you've got time to think, oh yeah, now I have to sweep and left hand out. There. See how much longer time I have? because the line is traveling in a big circle. So I can just move around. And the bigger angle change you want, the bigger the circle you make. So now we actually do have a downstream wind. Okay. This is not very useful with a two-handed rod, but if I make a big circle, there, big circle, I got time to twist all the way around and cast upstream. So just think about that. The bigger the circle, the more time you have to change angles. And if you want to cast 90 degree, you build a big circle. Then it's super easy. Get this one in. So, there. That was a little bit about different anchor points. Any questions so far? No? So when I'm done, you'll all jump down here with super long leaders and do magic tricks. You can everybody can learn how to write the name with your left hand if you're right-handed and vice versa. It's just practice. Practice, practice, practice. It's all it is. It's all muscle memory, and that's why I often, when I teach people, I recommend that they do both single and double, because it's the same body movement. It's the same muscle memory. You don't have to think when you change rods. The only thing that's different is timing. So if I go from this little 12-foot 7 weight here to a 15-foot 10 weight, it takes longer. It's longer heads, it's a longer rod, the line travels longer distances before it anchors. So with a 15-footer, you would wait longer when you lift, you sweep, and then you just wait a little bit longer with the longer rod. That's all it is. It's the same body movement. And then I've noticed everybody here fishes mono running lines, which I use for my sinking heads. Back home we don't do Scadgets. I don't know, I think Atlantic salmon, they're a little bit more spooky than steelhead. Now I fish both, so it's not just something that I think they are, I know they are. If you did this on top of a salmon, I know you're there, I'm not biting. So we fish full sinking heads instead. And a decent full sinking head, I didn't bring any, but you can cast exactly like this. So the trick here is, that first lift I talked about, it should only be your leader that's attached to the water. So lift, sweep, anchor, and cast. Doesn't say anything. So when you have this head here is 10.1 meters. So what is that in feet? 30, 31, 32 feet or something. So if I had a sinking head for this rod, it would be probably somewhere around 3 feet shorter. So when I lift, my sinking head is off the water, I do exactly the same thing and cast. Sinking head. And then I would fish a mono running line. I know that Scadget fishes really well, and it's super good when the fish hangs along your own bank and the fly swings in and it fishes like this and stuff. So I'm not complaining about Scadget. I'm just saying that I think you could, if you want to fish slow, you can fish much slower with a full sinking line. You know, the rivers, the top water is always faster than just 2 feet down. So if you can get your full sinking line down into that and have a mono running line, it fishes super slow. And I know then people say, but you can't mend it. No, you can't mend it. You don't have to, because you got no pressure on your line. You can just lift. People, they buy fry rods for $1,000 because they want this space technology carbon fiber. But all the steelheaders, they stick the rod out of the arm, hand in their pocket, hoodie up. Right? I see them all the time.
Beer in the waiter
I'm not
pocket.
talking to you. Right? In Scotland, my boss is from Scotland, so it's okay, I can do this. Scotland, they wear tie and a tweed. They chalk the line out and then they put in the autumn end, like somebody said, and then they hope for something to happen. Right? If I had my full sinking line and my mono running line, and I paid $1,000 for a rod because it doesn't weigh anything, chuck that one out there. Line management issues right there. Don't have to mend, just lift it up. I have 200 grams, what'll that be? 8 ounces or something of carbon fiber. No pressure. The head, my sinking head is down in the slow water below the fast top water. Got a mono running line. and you just fish it in. And even my arms are super skinny, right? So I can do this all day. Maybe not with a 15-foot cane rod, but I never fished that. Okay, so I don't have to mend. Mono running lines, don't mend, just lift the rod up. Then you can tell a steel header from a Scandi gun. Right. Or a Scotsman. No, well, so that's a little bit about how we do it. And I started fishing the full sinking heads on the clear water, and they fish really super well. Of course, instead of changing 10 foot of tip, you change 30 foot of head. Wrap it around your hand, stuff it in your pocket, just like your tip. No big deal. Okay, I don't know how, that was half an hour. I could probably go another 5 minutes, get this stuff in. Any questions? No? Okay. So back in Europe, we, about 50 years ago, we invented something we call a sink tip line. With interchangeable tips. I'm pulling your leg now. We have something light, you would probably define it as light Skagit. Somebody made a knot on my line. This is a fairly short floating head with a sinking tip on it. You've seen Calvin was using this rod earlier. I'll see if I can do it as well as he did. So it's got like a 12 or a 15-foot tip on it here, and a floating belly. But it's not as heavy as a Skagit tip. So I know when you get a line like this in your hands over here, you have to do this, right? To let the fish know you're here. But if I'm going to get my ass whipped so bad tonight.
Just go to sleep.
I think I better. Okay, but you can actually cast this line here the same way like we just did. Just lift, get that sink tip off the water, anchor, and cast. Same thing. I'll speed it up a little bit for you. This is an 11-foot switch rod. There. Got too many branches and stuff sticking out. Lift, sweep, anchor, and cast. Same thing.
What happens if you're not rolling your sink tip over very well? Do you have to bring more up for lifting?
Was that a hint? Didn't it turn over good? No, what I normally do is, if depending on my fly size, I will chop my tip down. Pair of scissors. Okay, so lift, sweep, anchor, and cast. It's exactly the same cast like I just did with both the other rods. And then I always get the questions, what do you do with your running line? And this is why I call it line management issues earlier. Just that's, I'll just go through that really quick. Okay. So what you do is, just going to chug it out there. There, it's gone. So you count your strips. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have a loop here of 4 strips. So I go 1, 2, 3. I got 3 strips, so now I have a smaller loop. 1, 2. Okay, so now I have 3 loops in my hand. I run the line down around the reel like this, because then it never gets tangled up. Okay, now I'm ready to cast again. So I got all my loops hanging here. And of course, now it's going to tangle up, I know. But normally it doesn't. There. Super easy. Any questions? No?
No problem.
Easy peasy, right?
Depending, sometimes you need 2 loops on 1 finger, but I try to have 1 on each. It doesn't matter. If you put 1 on this finger, you got to let go of the bottom hand. That's no good. One little thing, now we'll talk about this before I shut up. Don't get me started, because I can speak the rest of the day. And you just start wandering off, and I'll stand here and run out of gas on the generator. Okay. Sometimes I see people when they're casting a double-handed rod, they stop the rod out here. Right? They stop here or here. But now this is a short little 11 footer, so I can control that. But if I had a 14 or a 15 footer or a 13 footer, I cannot control that rod between my hands. It's going to wobble. Here, I can't hold it stiff enough. That's why I always tell people, use your body as a stop point. Now there's mostly guys here, so stop right next to where it hurts the most. There. Okay? Because then you have a fixed stop, lift, sweep, stop. The rod stops. There's no wobbling. Stop out here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So just hit your thigh or your belt or whatever. There. Rod stops. And it straightens out and throws the line away. You don't have to do it. One little thing about single-handed casting when we talk about trout fishing. Now I know it's a Spey Clave, but I can overhead cast. Okay. And you know, you see it rising trout over there. What are you going to, over there now? Just say it's over there. It's a lot easier for me. So it's up there.
You're a caster.
My line is there. I see a fish there. Right? I got to work my way around there, you know? Right? Before I get there. Okay. By that time I get there, that fish is gone. So what do you use the circles for? Use them for changing direction. If I want to cast that way, I build a circle that goes that way. See it? Now my line is already in the new casting direction. Can I lift? I'll do it quicker. There. Circle, lift that way, and cast. There you go. That's an angle change. I want to go back again. I build a circle that goes the other way. There. Lift. Cast. Super easy. Just I'll show you how to do that. The simplest thing here is put in an, what do you call it? An aerial mend into the line. Okay? So you just go right, left. Okay, now you got, see, you got a bend in the line. Okay? So that's the beginning of it. So I go left, right, left, then the line turns to the left. You get it? Okay. But that little thing here, that you move the rod tip, just build a little aerial mend in here. That's the first step of casting around the corner. Then you just snap it a little bit harder. Then it starts turning. Okay. So where I fish, we have trees. So sometimes you can't go in horizontal, or the line coming that way. You have to come in underneath the branches. There. And that's super easy. Everybody can learn that. Cast sideways, snap, line turns to the left. So when the line is flying that way, you just snap the rod tip, line kicks to the left. There. Okay, any other questions? It's very easy. I teach you that in 5 minutes.